absurd joy par excellence is creation, says Camus. So that's what we'll look at, his understanding of how the artist creates and what that means for his Revolt, how the artist is kind of this exemplary figure who revolts, takes on that response to the absurdity of your existence. I want to turn to a artist, Andrew Wyeth, an American artist who you may recognize this painting. It's a famous painting. Maybe you've taken an art class where you've seen it, or maybe you've just seen it. Wyeth was a painter who was born in Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia in the Brandywine Valley, and would travel back and forth between there and to Maine. And here he provides us with a glimpse into a woman's world, Christina's world, and that's actually the name of the painting. I want you to take a moment with it. Just take it in. What does it evoke for you? What do you see? What emotions are there? What emptiness is there? What questions does it raise for you? What are the stakes here? I mean, what is she after? Why is she on the ground, clawing, it looks like, at the earth, uphill? The kind of minimalistic presence of these houses, yet looming there on the horizon, almost overpowering, yet so distant. And then there's this uniformity to the foreground in the grass, right? All broken up though by these tracks racing through, leaving you questioning, well, what's happening there? Was there some vehicle that was coming in a hurry, was leaving in a hurry? And what is she doing there? We can't see her face, right? But we can imagine. We can imagine maybe her hair there wisping out, as delicate as the grass. So Wyeth here, in his painting, might serve us with a representation of the absurd. Camus here in the Rebel, talking about how artists and others suffer from not being able to possess the world completely enough. Estranged citizens of the world, he says, exiled from their own country. And really that's all of us, right? That's the human condition. And you might feel a little estranged right now from your world, a little bit, or a lot, a bit, really exiled from your own country, from your own campus, for instance. And so how then do you respond? And as an artist, how does an artist respond to this? For Camus, what happens with an artist is through his or her work, they are explicitly attempting to give unified form to experience. That they're expressing that condition, our condition. So if we can't truly, in any lasting way, bridge that gap, that space between our need, our desire for meaning, and the world's indifference, the world's silence, what can we do? We can represent that divorce. We can try to ourselves become clearer about it, right? To form a coherent vision of it, to give uniformity to how we see and approach our condition. So we do that by presenting it, by capturing it, by reflecting it. He says sculpture does this in a brilliant way. Now we can say maybe he's talking about all arts in general, but he's zoning in here on sculpture as doing this in a very particular way. In the Rebel, he says, sculpture is bent on capturing the fugitive figure of man, right? The fleeting kind of figure of the human, and on restoring the unity of great style to the general disorder of gestures. I mean, just think about how we're in movement all the time, or in motion all the time. And sculpture here freezes that, captures that, puts it together into one still moment. He says its purpose is not to imitate, right, but to stylize and to imprison in one significant expression the fleeting ecstasy of the body, or the infinite variety of human attitudes. All of it brought home, resonating with you as a viewer in this one figure, in this one image, the kind of expansiveness of the human condition. So Camus is pointing to really two ways that I can see that is pointing to how we do this with art. We kind of stabilize a part of our lives, a part of our world, because everything in this world is always moving, right? If we remember Heraclitus, things are always changing, right? Things are flowing into other things, our expressions, our emotions, our activities, one flows into the other. But the artist is able to carve out, frame out, as he says, as Camus says, the first thing the artist does, the painter does, is to square off his canvas, right? So you square off a piece of experience there. You freeze it without actually killing it, though, because what you paint, what you render in art still has a life to it. That statue of that man, Laocoon, who was represented in that sculpture that I just showed you, he seems alive to us. There is an emotion that you can feel there, even though he's stone, right? We've frozen him into the stone, yet there's a life, a feeling, something animate, a spirit there that continues. And in the best artworks, in the best paintings, we say it's alive, it's not dead. There's something there that seems flowing, yet it's captured. So this leads us then to another thing that the artwork does for Camus, is this implication. That the artwork doesn't, it simply suggests all of the richness and range of human experience, or if not all, a good amount of it, right? And it has this abundancy that you can return to it over and over and over again and find things about it, revisit it, refresh yourself in ways when you view it, whether it be a film, whether it be a painting, whether it be a play, whether it be a song, that you can return again and again and again to it and still get stuff out of it. And it crosses the human experience in all of its diverse manifestations. So for Camus, the artist is doing this, though, at a scale that is not one-to-one with the entire world, right? The artist is not trying to represent detail by detail a replica of the world. The artist is selecting pieces of that world, arranging those pieces, bringing it down to the human scale, the scale of the individual or the community, the small collective that you belong to. The artist is excluding things about the world and including things about the world to render his or her vision of it. Camus says in the myth of Sisyphus, the artwork is a piece cut out of experience, a facet of the diamond in which the inner luster is epitomized without being limited, right? So it's not as if the artist is presenting you with the whole world. It's that piece of the world which then shines as brightly and more clearly to you that you can kind of hold that little piece of it in your hand and feel like, yes, I've got this. And what this is implies everything, implies the whole, the entirety of the world. Camus says this correction, which the artist imposes, so this reconstruction of the world, this, in the sense, if we recall in the earlier video, we had Van Gogh saying the world is just this kind of messy sketch, right? And Camus saying the artist is trying to correct that sketch. The artist is trying to fill in that sketch. So this correction, which the artist imposes by his language and by a redistribution, that should say, of elements derived from reality, is called style. And it gives the recreated universe its unity and boundaries. So through this process of selection and arrangement, where do we put these figures? What colors do we use? What shapes? What's the composition overall of the piece? What is the texture of the piece? All of these decisions, all of these elements that go into the work help create a unified piece and gives it boundaries from which the viewer can come in, look at it, and take it in at a glance, take it in, in a way that it resonates immediately. The best artworks have that sense of immediacy, but also that enduring ability for you to find constant, renewed meanings within it. And it's because of this unity and this boundary that the artwork has for us that we're able to go in and do that as spectators, as participants in an art, as artists ourselves. Now, Camus also says that one of the things that the artwork does not do is explain. That what it is tasked to do is to describe. And this is interesting because he calls this a kind of intellectual drama that the artwork embodies. And that intellectual drama is happening within the artist himself or herself. Because the artist is a thinking being, a being who wants to rationalize the world, wants to find reasons and meaning. That's the whole point, right, of being a human being for Camus. So aware of this is the source, he says, of the art. But the artist is also aware of the limitations of theory, of explanation, of over-intellectualizing, that such things actually kill the art, kill what the art implies, kills the richness and variety of the art by slamming an explanation on top of it. The artwork itself suffers from that explanation. Doesn't allow the viewer, doesn't allow the participant, doesn't allow the artist to come back and see and experience that art in its most profound way through its just concrete description. It is the lucid thought that provokes the artwork. So it's the artist's thought that gives rise to the art, right? It kind of charges forward. But, he says, in that very act, that thought repudiates itself. So this is the paradox of the artist, because the artist, yes, has the thoughts as a rational being trying to kind of think through some things and find meaning, but then it's the realization of the limits of that, right? The inability to fully find that enduring meaning. And so it pulls back that thought at the same time and lets the artwork speak for itself. The art will not yield to the temptation, or the artist will not yield to the temptation of adding to what is described a deeper meaning than it knows to be illegitimate. So in the artwork, right, for Camus, the resistance to explain its own meaning is there. And by illegitimate here, he means it's not an absolute meaning, right? Whatever the artist says about his or her own work is not the absolute meaning of that work. So this brings us to the notion of style that Camus addresses. He says style is the way in which an artist engages with reality, this way in which it is a personalized wrestling with what is and what isn't, what the artist takes in from this world and what the artist leaves out, and how that artist arranges those things in this deeply personal and profound way that moves him, moves her, right? The stylization, Camus says, supposes the simultaneous existence of reality and of the mind that gives reality its form, right? The artist is giving reality form through his or her works, and there is that negotiation of what that world outside of the artist's vision is, along with that vision the artist is trying to create of that world. Style takes place within that relationship. Through the style, the creative effort reconstructs this world. Okay, this is Camus, part of Camus' understanding of what art does for us and what the artist is trying to do for us, and how the artist is resisting, and in one way, the temptation to have a final absolute explanation for things, but yet still trying to create something that will give us that unity, that uniformity of meaning that we strive for, to kind of bring our experiences together in a way to make sense of them, in a way where we can have some clarity about our own lives. The way an artist, through his or her work, transfigures the world to unify it with oneself, to unify the world with oneself, right? That is style. So I've been able to pull out these 4 threads that I find in Camus' ideas on art and what he's saying, and these threads, there's in some ways, at some points, kind of crisscross each other. There's overlap here, but the artist, in giving unified form to experience, is seeking to express our condition, even if the artist can't, in any enduring way, resolve that condition. The artist can express it, and so give that expression some form of unity, some form of wholeness to it. And the artist is doing this at a human scale, right? Doing this in a way which is not trying to get everything about the world all, fitted into one canvas, so to speak, but selecting things out of it to suggest, to imply the entirety of a situation or the entirety of a condition. The art does not explain itself, it simply presents itself for us to go in and find this unity and this coherency and this clarity that it might offer us when we look back at our own lives. And that style that the artist brings to his or her work is that negotiation, is that wrestling that the artist is doing between what he or she finds lacking in the world and the world itself, and what he or she is trying to envision the world as. So I'll leave you with 2 quotes here from Camus. The artist commits himself and becomes himself in his work. It's this bringing together of your own vision with what you're doing, your actions, what you create in this world. So again, we're back to this notion that the beliefs you have match up with your actions, with your actual life. How you live is brought into harmony with what you believe and how you envision things, including yourself. That style is almost form made flesh, right? Stylization incarnate, right? Where your body and what you do and how you live and how you imagine yourself in this world is realized in the very things you're doing in this world. So I invite you again to just sit with Christina here and take a little bit of this in, maybe too, with some of Camus' ideas in the background.